Many people spend years studying manifestation, reading countless books, watching videos, and practicing various techniques, only to find themselves living the same reality year after year. They believe deeply in their ability to change their lives, but remain puzzled by the lack of tangible results. This frustration often arises because most manifestation teachings focus primarily on external effort, neglecting the crucial role of the brain itself. Your brain isn't just processing information. It's a powerful instrument designed to access and experience entirely different realities. If you're serious about shifting timelines, you must first understand how your brain functions as the bridge between you and every parallel reality you desire. At its most fundamental level, reality is not a fixed, static experience. It's fluid and responsive to your internal state. Think of your brain as an antenna, constantly sending and receiving signals. The signals it transmits are formed by your thoughts, emotions, and, most importantly, your beliefs. When you repeat specific thoughts, those thoughts literally form neural pathways in your brain. The more frequently you have a particular thought, the more deeply embedded that neural pathway becomes. Over time, these pathways become your default settings, shaping how you perceive and interact with the world. Here's where parallel realities come into play. Science tells us reality isn't just a single, linear path. Rather, it's a collection of infinite timelines, all existing simultaneously. This concept may feel abstract at first, but consider this. Every possible outcome you could ever imagine already exists on some level as a potential reality. Your brain's neural connections determine which of these potential realities you tune into. You're never creating your reality from scratch. You're simply aligning with a version of reality that already exists, waiting to be experienced. The beliefs you hold about yourself, your worth, your capabilities, and what's possible for you are essentially the wiring that determines which version of reality you're currently aligned with. If you believe deeply that financial abundance is hard to achieve, your brain's neural pathways become shaped by this belief. Each time you think thoughts aligned with scarcity or limitation, you reinforce these neural pathways, strengthening the signal you're sending out. Reality, reflecting these signals, presents you with more experiences that validate your existing beliefs. But here's the empowering part. Just as your brain wired itself into your current reality, you can consciously rewire it to connect with a different timeline. Neuroplasticity, the brain's capacity to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, is your gateway to shifting realities. By intentionally changing your thoughts, beliefs, and emotional patterns, you literally alter the frequency your brain broadcasts. Instead of tuning into a reality of scarcity, limitation, or frustration, you tune into the reality that aligns with your ideal life, whether that means abundance, fulfilling relationships, vibrant health, or unlimited creativity. The key to shifting timelines is recognizing that your brain's wiring isn't fixed. Many people stay stuck because they view reality as a cause and effect system based on external effort. They think change comes from manipulating the external world, working harder, struggling more, and chasing opportunities. But external reality doesn't create itself. It reflects your internal wiring. If your neural pathways remain tuned to your old frequency, no amount of external effort can break you free from your current reality. This understanding completely flips the traditional view of manifestation upside down. You're not pulling something into your life from outside. You're shifting your internal wiring so your external reality can naturally reflect the new frequency. Your beliefs, thoughts, and neural pathways aren't simply influencing reality. They are literally creating and maintaining your reality moment by moment. Your beliefs about what is possible, what you're worthy of, and how life works form the fundamental blueprint your brain follows. And here's the crucial insight. To shift into a new timeline, you must create new neural connections. These new pathways, aligned with your desired reality, replace the old ones that kept you stuck. When your brain begins operating on new beliefs, new thought patterns, and new emotional responses, it effortlessly tunes into a parallel reality that matches this new frequency. Every shift begins internally. Before anything changes in the external world, the wiring inside your brain changes first. Many people misunderstand this process. They wait for proof in their physical reality before believing in their shift. But the brain doesn't work this way. Physical reality is always a reflection of your internal wiring. If you're waiting for proof, you'll continue to reinforce the old neural patterns, remaining stuck in the very timeline you want to leave behind. By consciously rewiring your brain through focused, intentional thought, you gain control over the frequency you broadcast. This makes timeline shifting not only possible, but inevitable. Your neural pathways become the internal structure that reality reflects back to you. When these pathways are aligned clearly with your desired reality, your external world has no choice but to rearrange itself accordingly. In the next segment, you'll understand exactly why habitual patterns have kept you locked in your current timeline, and how breaking these habitual loops is essential to effortlessly shifting into a new reality. Your brain is constantly forming neural pathways, reinforcing connections between neurons based on what you repeatedly think, feel, and do. Each thought or action you consistently engage in strengthens these neural connections, creating deeply entrenched patterns. Over time, these neural pathways become the default operating system of your mind, dictating your reactions, perceptions, and ultimately, the reality you experience. This is why many people find themselves repeatedly stuck in the same unwanted circumstances. Their brain has become wired to perceive and respond to reality in a predictable, limited way. Every time you repeat familiar thoughts or emotional reactions, you further solidify existing neural pathways. Imagine these pathways like trails in a dense forest. The more frequently you walk a particular path, the clearer and more defined it becomes. Eventually, the path is so well-worn that it becomes the obvious and most accessible route. Similarly, the brain defaults to well-established neural paths because it requires less energy and cognitive effort. Even if these patterns cause unhappiness, limitation, or dissatisfaction, the brain will naturally prioritize them due to their familiarity. This neurological preference for familiar patterns explains why change feels challenging. Your brain is fundamentally designed to conserve energy, preferring predictable outcomes even if they're undesirable. Breaking free from these habitual patterns requires initially higher cognitive effort, leading many people to give up prematurely or resist change altogether. This resistance is often misunderstood as personal weakness or lack of willpower, but in reality, it's simply your brain's default mechanism operating exactly as intended. The resistance you feel when trying to shift your reality is a direct reflection of your brain seeking comfort and predictability. Neurologically, your mind perceives uncertainty as a threat, prompting it to reinforce familiar patterns for safety. The unknown, no matter how desirable, is initially perceived by your brain as risky and uncomfortable, triggering mental and emotional resistance. This internal friction keeps you repeating familiar behaviors and thought processes, continually anchoring you in your current timeline. Additionally, your everyday habits reinforce these neural loops. Each time you respond in habitual ways, whether it's reacting with frustration, self-doubt, anxiety, or procrastination, you're essentially reaffirming the very neural connections you wish to change. Your emotional responses further cement these pathways. Emotions like stress, worry, or fear stimulate chemical responses in the brain that reinforce existing neural structures. This creates a self-perpetuating feedback loop. Your emotions reinforce neural patterns, and these neural patterns, in turn, reinforce the same emotional states. This feedback loop is why so many people struggle to shift into new timelines. Despite consciously wanting change, their subconscious brain wiring continues to pull them back to the old familiar patterns. Trying to shift without changing this neurological wiring is like attempting to swim against a powerful current. No matter how determined you are, the subconscious mind will eventually redirect you back to your familiar state. However, Despite this powerful resistance, your brain is naturally designed for adaptability and growth. Neuroscience confirms that the brain has an incredible capacity for change through a process known as neuroplasticity. Your brain can create and strengthen entirely new neural pathways, allowing you to consciously shift your perceptions, emotions, and actions. Although your brain initially resists unfamiliar pathways, consistent reinforcement can transform these new connections into your default operating system, making your desired timeline effortless and natural. Understanding this neurological mechanism clarifies why change feels difficult at first. It isn't personal failure or lack of effort. It's simply your brain working to maintain its familiar structure. Once you recognize this, you can begin to approach reality shifting from a place of awareness and empowerment, leveraging your brain's innate ability to adapt rather than fighting against it. In the next segment, you'll discover exactly how neuroplasticity, the brain's inherent flexibility, offers you a clear and effective pathway to permanently rewiring your mind, breaking free from old limitations, and stepping into your desired timeline with ease. Your brain is not static. It is constantly rewiring itself, forming new neural connections based on your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. This continuous adaptability, known as neuroplasticity, is the fundamental mechanism behind shifting timelines. When you shift into a new reality, you're not forcing external change. You're allowing your brain to rewire itself to perceive and interact with a new version of reality that already exists. This means that if your brain is wired for struggle, doubt, or limitation, you will keep experiencing those conditions. But when you consciously rewire your mind, your reality follows suit. Neuroplasticity proves that your beliefs and mental patterns are not permanent. Many people feel trapped by their circumstances because they believe that their thought patterns, emotional reactions, and personal limitations are fixed. But science confirms that your brain is always evolving. It is designed to change, adapt, and grow. No matter how deeply ingrained your old beliefs and habits may be, you have the power to override them by forming new neural connections. This is why people who undergo profound transformations, whether in health, finances, or personal growth, are not experiencing random luck. They are shifting their neurological structure to align with a different set of experiences. How neuroplasticity shapes your reality. Every thought you think and every emotion you feel strengthens specific neural pathways. Your brain is like a muscle. What you use, you strengthen. The more you focus on certain ideas, the more your brain reinforces them. This is why people who constantly worry about their problems seem to attract more of them, while those who focus on possibilities and solutions begin to experience new opportunities. Your brain does not differentiate between positive or negative experiences. It simply builds on whatever you repeat most often. The reason most people stay stuck in the same timeline is that their brains are wired for familiarity. The human brain craves predictability, even if that predictability is negative. It defaults to old neural pathways because those patterns require less energy than creating new ones. This is why shifting to a new timeline requires conscious effort. Your brain needs to break out of autopilot and create fresh neural connections. If you are not intentional about forming new mental patterns, your brain will continue defaulting to the ones that keep you in your current reality. Science has proven that focused attention is one of the key factors in rewiring the brain. Your neurons fire in response to where you place your focus. This is why vague daydreaming doesn't create significant shifts. Passive thoughts don't generate enough neurological change. But when you engage your mind with strong concentration and intent, your brain encodes the new information deeply, reinforcing neural pathways that support your desired reality. This is why learning a new skill requires effort in the beginning. Your brain has to carve out new neural pathways before the skill becomes automatic. The role of emotion in neural rewiring. Another essential element of neuroplasticity is emotional engagement. Emotions amplify the impact of new thoughts, making them more deeply ingrained. This is why experiences tied to strong emotions, whether positive or negative, are easier to remember than neutral events. The stronger the emotional charge behind a thought or belief, the faster your brain rewires itself around it. If you want to shift into a new timeline, you must not only think differently, you must feel differently. Your emotions provide the energy that solidifies new neural pathways. For example, if someone wants to shift into a timeline of financial abundance, but constantly feels stress and anxiety about money, their brain remains wired for lack. Even if they affirm new beliefs intellectually, their emotional state reinforces the old neural wiring. To shift timelines, they must actively generate the feelings of abundance before seeing external proof. The brain responds to emotional intensity, so aligning your internal state with your desired reality is crucial for rewiring your mind effectively. Repetition, the key to lasting change. A single thought or emotional shift won't override years of conditioning. The brain changes through consistent reinforcement. Neural pathways are strengthened through repetition, just like muscles grow through repeated use. This is why it takes time to break old patterns and establish new ones. At first, shifting your focus and emotional state may feel unnatural, but with repetition, your brain adapts, making the new state your default. Think of it like learning a new language. In the beginning, it feels difficult and unnatural because your brain is wired for your native language. But with practice and repetition, new neural pathways form, and eventually, the new language becomes effortless. The same applies to shifting timelines. If you want to step into a different reality, you must consistently reinforce the mental and emotional states that align with that reality. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that their brain will change instantly. While some shifts can happen quickly, most require deliberate and sustained effort. If you practice new thought patterns and emotional states for a few days and then revert to old habits, your brain will default back to its original wiring. But if you remain consistent, new neural pathways will solidify, making your desired reality feel natural. Why understanding neuroplasticity empowers you? Understanding neuroplasticity is crucial for shifting timelines because it removes the element of uncertainty. You are not hoping for change or waiting for your reality to shift. You are actively retraining your brain to perceive and interact with a different version of reality. This process is grounded in science, not wishful thinking. The more you engage in thoughts and emotions aligned with your desired timeline, the more your brain reshapes itself to support that experience. When you grasp that your brain is your gateway to different realities, you stop feeling powerless. You realize that no matter what circumstances you were born into, no matter what patterns you've carried from the past, you have the ability to consciously rewire your mind and shift timelines at will. This is not a theory, it is a biological fact. In the next segment, we will explore practical techniques that leverage neuroplasticity to accelerate the process of shifting timelines. These methods will help you consciously rewire your brain, making your new reality feel as natural and automatic as the one you're leaving behind. Understanding neuroplasticity gives you the foundation to shift timelines, but knowledge alone isn't enough. To create lasting change, you need practical techniques that actively rewire your brain and reinforce the new timeline you want to step into. This isn't about wishful thinking. It's about training your mind to perceive and respond to reality in a completely new way. By consistently applying these techniques, you're guiding your brain to create new neural pathways, making your desired reality feel natural and inevitable. Why active rewiring is necessary? Your brain doesn't automatically rewire itself to match your new desires just because you want it to. It changes when you consistently engage with new thoughts, emotions, and experiences. This is why many people struggle with manifestation. They passively hope for change without actively shifting their mental patterns. Just like learning a new language or building a new habit, shifting timelines requires repeated reinforcement until the brain fully adapts. The goal is to replace old neural pathways, ones that keep you locked into your current timeline, with new ones that align with the version of reality you prefer. This process isn't forced. It's about making the new pathways stronger and more familiar until they become the brain's default mode of operation. Visualization, creating the new neural blueprint. One of the most powerful ways to rewire the brain is through visualization. Neuroscience has proven that the brain responds to vivid mental imagery almost identically to real-life experiences. When you visualize something in great detail, your neurons fire as if the experience is actually happening. This means that the more you mentally experience your desired timeline, the more your brain adapts to it as reality. Effective visualization isn't just about imagining an outcome. It's about immersing yourself in the scene. Instead of passively picturing your future, engage all your senses. What does your new timeline feel like? What do you hear? How does your body respond? The more real the experience feels in your mind, the more effective it is at rewiring your brain. Mental rehearsal, becoming the new version of you. Mental rehearsal takes visualization a step further by practicing behaviors and decisions from your desired reality. Instead of just seeing yourself as successful, abundant, or healthy, mentally rehearse how you would act, speak, and move in that timeline. If you want to shift into a reality of confidence, practice thinking and behaving like the version of you who already embodies confidence. How does that version of you respond to challenges? How do they carry themselves? The more you mentally rehearse this version of yourself, the more your brain strengthens the neural circuits that make it your new default state. Affirmations, programming the subconscious mind. Affirmations work by repeating new beliefs until they become ingrained in your subconscious. The key is not to say them mindlessly, but to attach strong emotions and conviction to them. The subconscious mind responds to feeling, not just words. For example, instead of passively saying, "I am abundant," deeply engage with the feeling of abundance as you affirm it. Let your body and emotions respond as if the statement is already true. This triggers the brain to reinforce the belief rather than reject it as wishful thinking. A useful method is combining affirmations with visualization. As you state an affirmation, see and feel yourself in the timeline where it is already a reality. This doubles the effect, as the brain receives both verbal and visual reinforcement, leveraging the brain's most receptive states. The timing of these practices is just as important as the techniques themselves. Your brain is most impressionable when it is in a relaxed, receptive state. This happens naturally in two occasions. Right before sleep, when the brain is on theta state and is more open to suggestion, making it the perfect time for visualization and affirmations. Or first thing in the morning, when your brain is still transitioning from the subconscious state, allowing you to set the tone for your day before external stimuli take over. Practicing neural rewiring techniques during these states allows the new patterns to sink deeper into the subconscious, accelerating the shift. Emotional reinforcement, the catalyst for lasting change. Thoughts alone don't shift timelines. Emotions fuel the transformation. Every reality exists at a specific vibrational frequency, and emotions are the fastest way to match that frequency. If you visualize success but feel doubt, your brain remains wired for doubt. If you affirm abundance while feeling scarcity, your subconscious will reject the message. This is why emotional engagement is the secret ingredient in every technique. You must generate the feeling of your desired reality before you see it externally. A simple but effective way to amplify emotions is through gratitude. Feeling gratitude as if your shift has already happened sends a signal to your brain that this reality is already yours. Gratitude rewires the brain for expectancy, making it easier to align with the new timeline. Building consistency, how to make the shift permanent. Rewiring the brain isn't about doing these techniques once or twice. It's about consistent repetition. Neural pathways are strengthened through daily engagement. Just like going to the gym builds muscle, training your brain builds new thought and behavior patterns. To make the shift permanent, consistency is key. The more frequently and deeply you engage with your new reality, the faster your brain adopts it as its dominant state. In the next segment, we'll explore how to maintain these neural pathways so your shift becomes fully stabilized. Without reinforcement, the brain tends to revert to old patterns. But by staying intentional, you can ensure that your new timeline becomes your default reality. Rewiring your brain to shift timelines is a powerful process, but making the shift permanent requires ongoing reinforcement. Many people experience initial success with changing their thoughts and emotions, only to find themselves slipping back into old patterns when faced with familiar situations. This happens because the brain naturally defaults to the most deeply ingrained neural pathways unless the new ones become dominant. Maintaining your shift isn't about effort, it's about consistency. Once the brain is trained to favor new thought patterns, the shift happens automatically, without the need for constant intervention. One of the biggest reasons people revert to their old timelines is unconscious reinforcement of past identity patterns. Even after engaging in visualization, affirmations, and emotional realignment, they unknowingly react to life in ways that strengthen their previous neural pathways. A person who has been rewiring their brain for abundance, for example, might still respond to unexpected financial stress with worry and scarcity thinking. In doing so, they activate the old programming, reinforcing the timeline they were trying to leave behind. Maintaining the shift requires breaking the habit of reacting to external reality in a way that contradicts the new neural wiring. To fully stabilize a new timeline, the mind and body must continuously engage with the emotions and thoughts that align with the desired reality. The brain's neuroplasticity ensures that neural pathways strengthen with repetition. This means that every time you reaffirm your new state of being, through thought, feeling, or action, you make it easier for your brain to sustain that reality. Over time, the shift becomes second nature, and the new neural pathways become your default. Another common challenge is the brain's tendency to seek familiarity under stress. When faced with uncertainty, the subconscious mind prioritizes comfort, which often means retreating into old patterns. This is why many people experience a sense of progress followed by sudden doubt, fear, or regression. Recognizing this as part of the process allows you to shift your response instead of falling back into old habits. Rather than reacting with frustration, view these moments as opportunities to reinforce your new reality. If you notice self-doubt or old behaviors resurfacing, pause and consciously redirect your thoughts. Instead of engaging with the old pattern, reaffirm the new one. Consistency in mental and emotional alignment is what ultimately determines whether a shift stabilizes. The brain responds to whatever is repeated most frequently. If you shift between believing in your new timeline and seeking external validation before fully committing to it, your brain will remain in a state of uncertainty. This prevents the new neural pathways from fully taking hold. Those who successfully stabilize shifts do not need immediate external confirmation. They trust that their new reality is forming even before it appears in the 3D world. That trust itself reinforces the shift. Avoiding unnecessary focus on the past is another key aspect of maintaining your shift. Talking about, analyzing, or emotionally engaging with your past timeline keeps its neural pathways active. While reflection can be useful for learning, continuously revisiting old thought patterns only strengthens the neural circuits tied to them. Instead, shifting your attention to the present moment and reinforcing the future you are creating keeps your brain actively engaged in sustaining the new reality. Daily reinforcement techniques can accelerate the stabilization process. These do not need to be complicated or time-consuming. Even brief moments of mental alignment throughout the day can make a difference. For instance, taking a few minutes each morning to reconnect with the feeling of your new timeline, engaging in short but intentional affirmations, or briefly visualizing your desired reality before bed ensures that your brain remains focused on the shift. Small, consistent reinforcements are far more effective than sporadic, intense efforts. Another crucial element in stabilizing your shift is recognizing when your external reality begins to change and responding to it accordingly. Many people experience small shifts but dismiss them as coincidences or insignificant changes. However, Acknowledging these moments as proof that your new timeline is forming strengthens your belief and reinforces the neural pathways supporting it. The more you recognize and appreciate these early signs, the more your brain solidifies the new pattern. Ultimately, maintaining a shift is not about resisting old habits through force, but about making the new reality so natural that reverting becomes unlikely. The brain will always prioritize what is most familiar. Your job is to ensure that your new neural pathways receive enough reinforcement to become the dominant structure in your mind. Once that happens, the shift stabilizes effortlessly, and living in your desired timeline becomes automatic. In the final segment, we will bring everything together, reinforcing how these principles work in harmony to create a seamless transition into a new reality. Shifting timelines isn't about forcing change. It's about rewiring the brain in a way that makes the new reality inevitable. The process of shifting timelines isn't about forcing reality to change. It's about rewiring your brain so that your desired reality becomes the only natural outcome. Every belief, thought pattern, and emotional state you reinforce is shaping the reality you experience. This means that shifting is never about external circumstances. It's always an internal process. Once you understand how your brain's neural wiring determines what version of reality you align with, you can take full control of the process and step into any timeline you choose. One of the most empowering realizations about shifting timelines is that it is not a matter of effort. It's a matter of alignment. Most people struggle because they focus on chasing outcomes rather than becoming the version of themselves who naturally experiences those outcomes. The brain is designed to create consistency between your internal state and external reality. This is why people who fully embody their new timeline find that change happens effortlessly. When the mind is rewired to accept a new reality as the dominant state, the external world has no choice but to mirror it. The key to lasting transformation lies in consistency. Many people get excited about shifting, but lose momentum when results don't appear instantly. This is where most shifts fail, not because they weren't working, but because doubt, impatience, or old habits interrupted the rewiring process before it became permanent. The brain adapts through repetition and reinforcement. If you remain committed to the new neural pathways, they will strengthen until they become your default mode of operation. The shift happens when your new reality is no longer something you are trying to achieve, but simply the way you exist. This process is available to everyone. Neuroplasticity is a fundamental function of the brain, which means that anyone has the ability to change their internal wiring and shift timelines. No one is stuck in their current reality unless they continue reinforcing it. This is why becoming aware of your mental and emotional patterns is so important. Without that awareness, you unconsciously repeat the same patterns, keeping the same timeline active. But once you take conscious control, the power to shift is entirely in your hands. Shifting timelines is not something you wait for, it's something you do. Every thought you focus on, every emotional state you maintain, and every action you take is reinforcing a specific version of reality. When all of these align with the timeline you desire, the shift is inevitable. The more you embody this understanding, the more you realize that the power was never outside of you. It has always been within your mind, shaping your experience from the very beginning. The truth is, you are already shifting timelines every day. The question is whether you are doing it consciously or unconsciously. Now that you understand how your brain determines your reality, the choice is yours. Keep reinforcing the old, or take control and rewire your mind to step fully into the timeline you truly desire.